They did not send a warning. They did not ask permission. They simply arrived, and they started killing. The first plasma cannon fired at 4:47 in the morning, local time, over the city of Karachi. The blast was so powerful that it turned 4 square kilometers of steel, concrete, and human life into a flat, glowing field of ash in under 9 seconds. Not a building left standing, not a sound after. Just silence and heat, and the faint orange glow of a sky that no longer belonged to Earth. Commander Reza Kohani arrived at the edge of that silence 6 hours later. He did not speak. He did not need to. He had grown up in those streets. He had bought chai from a small shop on the corner of Sadr Market every morning for 15 years. That shop was gone. The corner was gone. The street was gone. 12 million people gone. Not defeated, not evacuated. Not missing. Erased. Reza pressed the sole of his boot into the ash. Somewhere beneath him, deep in the compressed ruin of a city that had stood for centuries, were the bones of people who had never even seen the sky open up. They had gone to sleep one night and never woke up because something from beyond the Orion Belt had decided this planet was useful and the people on it were not. He stood there for a long time, long enough for the ash to cool, long enough for the grief to harden into something more useful. He stood there until grief became a plan. The aliens had no name for themselves. Earth scientists, working in frantic 40-hour sessions in underground bunkers, called them the Vorkai, after the old Urdu word for a shadow that moves on its own. They had come from somewhere past the Orion constellation, traveling in a fleet of 41 ships that were each the size of a mountain range. Their technology was so far beyond anything humanity had built that early analysis reports simply used the word impossible 17 times in the first 3 pages and were rejected for being unprofessional. The Vorkai had no interest in communicating. They sent no signal. They answered no transmission. Earth's radio telescopes, satellites, and deep space communication arrays had been broadcasting a response attempt for 6 days straight. The Vorkai ignored every single one. They were not at war with humanity. That was the part that kept scientists awake at night, shaking. They were simply working. Earth was a resource. Humanity was in the way. The Vorkai were clearing the field before planting season, the way a farmer burns dry grass before sowing seeds. They felt no more conflict about it than a man feels when he wipes a table clean. By the 3rd day, 4 cities were gone: Tehran, Lagos, Bogota. By the 5th day, every military response Earth had tried was confirmed as completely useless. Missiles evaporated before reaching the ships. Fighter jets were swatted from the sky without the Vorkai even rotating a weapon toward them. Nuclear warheads detonated prematurely, still in the upper atmosphere, doing nothing except irradiating the sky above dying cities. By the 7th day, world governments stopped arguing. They made one phone call. They called Reza Kohani. Reza was not a military man. He held no rank, no medals, no political position. He was a physicist who had spent the last 11 years working in a facility buried so deep under the Karakoram Mountains that it did not appear on any government map, any satellite image, or any classified file held by any intelligence agency in the world. The project had one name, known to exactly 19 people alive. Operation Last Word. When he walked into the Emergency Global Work Council, the room was full of generals, presidents, prime ministers, and defense chiefs who had not slept in days. Some were crying quietly. Others were staring at tactical screens showing cities that no longer existed. All of them looked at Reza the way people look at a doctor walking into a terminal ward. Like they needed a miracle. Like they had already given up on deserving one. Reza placed a single data tablet on the table. He did not sit down. "We cannot fight them in space," he said. "We tried, so we fight them in a way they have never seen. In a way nothing in this galaxy has probably ever seen." A British general leaned forward. "What way is that?" Reza's voice was calm. His hands were steady. His eyes were the eyes of a man who had already accepted whatever came next. We make the planet itself the weapon. The room went completely silent. Not a shuffle. Not a breath. For 11 years, Reza's team had been working on a system that tapped into the electromagnetic core of the Earth, not as a power source, not as an energy generator, as a trigger. The system, if activated, would release a synchronized electromagnetic pulse that started at the planet's molten core and moved outward through every layer of the Earth, through the mantle, through the crust, through the atmosphere, and into orbit. The pulse would be undetectable until the moment it fired. It could not be blocked. It could not be reflected. It traveled at the speed of light and carried the full electromagnetic force of a planet's core behind it. It would not harm a single human being on the ground. The pulse was tuned to a frequency that passed harmlessly through organic matter. But anything in orbit, anything with a circuit, anything carrying alien technology within 40,000 kilometers of Earth's surface would be instantly, permanently, and completely disabled. Every engine, every weapon system, every life support grid, dead. All of it. A French minister shook her head slowly. But you said it would also destroy our satellites, our GPS, our power grids, our communication systems. You are describing throwing the entire planet back into the Dark Ages. Reza looked at her for a moment. Then he placed both hands flat on the table, leaned forward, and said 4 words in a voice so quiet the room had to lean in to hear them. My daughter was in Karachi. No one spoke after that. The vote was unanimous. It took 6 days to charge the system. 6 days during which the Vorkai destroyed 2 more cities, Nairobi, Lahore. Reza did not leave his station beneath the mountains. He sat in a chair in front of the screen that showed a single progress bar, a line of green light moving across a black background 1 slow, painful percent at a time. He did not sleep. He ate whatever someone put in front of him, usually crackers, usually cold. He drank tea that was always the wrong temperature. He watched the numbers climb. On the 4th day, a young technician named Arjun sat beside him during the night shift and asked a question he had clearly been holding back for days. Sir, what was her name? Reza did not look away from the screen. Nadia, he said. She was 9 years old. She collected rocks, kept them in a shoebox under her bed, labeled in her own handwriting. She had 43 rocks from 43 different places. She was saving up to visit a volcano. Arjun said nothing. There was nothing to say. The progress bar climbed to 62%. On the 6th night, at 11:58 in the evening, the bar reached 100. The system was ready. Reza stood up. His knees ached. His eyes burned from 6 days of near continuous watching. He reached into the front pocket of his jacket and took out a small activation key. It was the size and shape of a thumb drive, smooth and red, warm from being carried close to his body for 11 years. 11 years of carrying this key. 11 years of hoping he would never need to use it. He held it for a long moment. He thought of a shoebox under a bed. 43 rocks. 43 small pieces of a world his daughter had loved and wanted to explore. He inserted the key. He turned it. The pulse moved outward from the center of the earth like a slow, silent breath. No explosion, no sound, no flash of light. No dramatic moment for the cameras. Just a wave of invisible energy, born in the molten heart of a planet, moving outward through 4,000 miles of rock and metal and ocean and air, rising through the atmosphere and into the cold black silence of space. It crossed the distance between the surface and the Vorkai fleet in 0.13 seconds. And then, one by one, the lights on 41 alien ships went out. The first ship fell at 12:01 a.m. It entered the atmosphere at a shallow angle, trailing a river of orange fire that stretched across 400 kilometers of sky. The second ship fell 90 seconds later, dropping straight down into the South Atlantic Ocean and raising a wave that satellite imaging would later confirm was 40 meters high. The third and fourth ships came down together, tangled in some gravitational death grip, spinning and burning and screaming through the atmosphere in a double helix of white and gold fire. In 37 minutes, all 41 ships had fallen. Some hit ocean, some hit desert. The largest ship, a vessel 300 kilometers long that had been hovering silently above Central Asia for 6 days, came down in the Sahara Desert and left a crater that reshaped the geography of an entire region. Scientists would study that crater for generations. When the dust and fire and smoke finally settled, Reza walked up the long tunnel from the control room to the surface. It was almost 2 a.m. The mountain air was cold and sharp. The sky above the Karakoram was absolutely clear. He looked up. The stars were there, every one of them, cold and indifferent and impossibly beautiful. The sky was empty of Vorkai ships. It was just the old sky, the same sky humanity had looked at for 100,000 years. The sky that Nadia had pointed at once and said she wanted to visit the stars before she visited the volcano. Reza sat down in the dirt beside the tunnel entrance, and for the first time in 6 days, he breathed. The watching had already begun. 14 civilizations within detectable range of Earth's solar system had observed the Vorkai fleet arrive. 11 of them had observed the attack. 7 of them had watched in real time with varying levels of interest, the way one might watch an ant colony encounter a boot. All 14 watched what came next with something closer to alarm. A primitive species, a species that had not yet left its own solar system, a species the Vorkai had not even bothered to classify as a threat, had just destroyed an entire assault fleet without launching a single ship, without firing a single weapon, without even leaving the surface of their planet. They had turned their world into a gun and fired it from the inside. The message was not sent in any language. No translation was needed. No radio signal was broadcast. No diplomatic communication was composed. The message was written in fire across the orbit of a planet. It said, "We did not choose this fight. We did not ask to be found. We did not want to be noticed. But we are still here. We sacrificed our own satellites, our own communications, our own technological civilization, just to remove you from our sky. Think about what that means. We burned our own house down to kill the thing inside it, and we did it without hesitating. Come again, and find out what we do when we have more time to prepare." The galaxy received Earth's warning. No one came back. Not that year, not the next decade, not in the century that followed, a century in which humanity rebuilt its satellites, redesigned its communication systems, developed its first faster-than-light prototype, and began, slowly and carefully, and with great deliberate intention, to look outward. There were other civilizations out there, some curious, some powerful, some ancient beyond description. But when they looked at Earth, none of them moved toward it. They looked the way you look at a door that has a sign on it. A sign you do not need to read twice. A sign you understand the first time. Because somewhere in the cold mathematics of interstellar survival, every civilization eventually learns the same lesson. The most dangerous thing in the universe is not the species with the biggest ships. It is the species that has nothing left to lose. If this story hit you the way it was meant to hit you, if you felt that moment when Reza turned that key and the Earth itself answered, then you already know what to do. Share this story with one person who needs to hear it. Comment the word Nadia below if you felt that moment. Subscribe so you never miss the next one. Humanity has always been the underdog, and the underdog always hits hardest when it has something worth protecting.